Hey guys, and welcome back to the Aspire podcast. Now, this is actually a Collab podcast with Ben, who runs the Level Up Academy podcast. And today we're just going to be talking about all things fitness, who we are as, business owners in our early 20s as well, and just our journeys. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello guys, I am Ben. I'm the owner of Level Up Academy. I always give Cheng Yang a bit of grief here because we are the real Level Up Academy, but now she's
Rename, rebranded.
Yeah, she's rebranded. I've got my territory back. But no, I'm Ben. I help guys pretty much level up their body, mind, and life. I do a few other things. So I helped Cheng Yang, and we were part of a mentorship group, and that's why we're here today. And now we're good friends and in Dubai. So yeah, a little bit about me.
Yeah, it's crazy actually the fact that we met a few years back, like through the mentorship, right? And now we're both living Dubai. I was in London back then, and where were you? Were you?
I was in. Yeah,
you were in Belfast, I think.
When was that? When did you join?
I think August 2021. Were you already here?
No, so I've been here. Yeah, I would be in Dubai, but I've been here 2 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 years this last week. So it was. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. And have you been finding it?
Yeah, every place has pros and cons. It's my first time living away and abroad. There's aspects I absolutely love here. Like today, we're just like, this is normal. Our conversations are normal in regards to very growth minded and things. But then there is obviously cons of places too. But for the most part, this chapter of life, growing, scaling, improving myself, it serves that good purpose. And it's also good to sun. What about you? How do you find it?
I'm loving it. Obviously, like when I came, it was for like a 2-week holiday, right? And then I kind of just never left. And I think that's sort of the same for a lot of people here.
Yeah. I didn't mean to be here either.
Right?
Yeah, mine wasn't a holiday. It was more of a, I couldn't get into Cyprus at the time. So it was more of a right, I'll stay here it was actually 2 weeks too. But I just kept renewing it. And then I got to the stage where I was paying so much to renew my visa. I was like, I was like, maybe I should stay here.
Yeah. It's funny how that's literally happened to everyone. Like it's always been just like almost like accident that you've ended up here. But no, same as you. I think like to be here, everyone here is very driven, right? Everyone comes for a reason. I think it's not an easy place to survive if you're just passive. So I like the fact that, again, the conversations that we have that are like very much about like growing, right? Like personal development, kind of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone becomes very normalized. Whereas I feel like back home, you don't really have these conversations as often and people don't really are on the same wavelength. So I know I've been loving it.
What, like, for everyone listening, when people say growth minded, what's the shift between here and, well, London's a big city? Is there a shift, or as even back home? Like, what is the shift? What do you mean by, what have you experienced when you say like, right, growth minded?
I think it's just like when you're here, people, they'll have an idea and they'll take action.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, nothing really stops them. They don't sit around going, oh, but what if I fail? What if this and that? It's more like, how can I make this happen? I have this idea. I'm going to make it happen. Right.
There's a fly.
Go away. Stop stealing the limelight. Whereas I think in London, it's funny because it is a big city, but even then it was always like you meet people and they have these ideas, but no one's like they're a lot more passive. And then obviously New Zealand, I think it's even more so the case, but I think it's because the environment is just so comfortable that there is no reason to kind of strive for more.
This fly is going about, right? To give a bit of context, we're both sitting at a table and there's a fly in the middle of it. It's
trying to act normal like there's no fly, but it is literally right between us flying in my face. But yeah, that's what I mean. Just like action takers here, not scared of failure. They're willing to, actually take risks. And I absolutely love that. I think when you're young, like why not, right?
Yeah. For me, I remember really clearly, like one of the first days, and this is really small. It's something really small, but I just remember like everyone sending voice notes. And I was like, people back home don't send voice notes, and everyone's a little bit more forward and they communicate more. Yeah. And then I remember like first few weeks, like meeting people, everyone has an app idea. Like everyone has like a business venture or an app idea or something, and you're like, okay, like there's definitely like an entrepreneurial spirit, and like the limiting belief aspect. There's no like, I think people, for me back home in Belfast, people wait for permission. They might have the idea. I truly do believe everyone has ambitions, but it's like how weighed down those ambitions are. Like it might be they're weighed down by like, oh, I can't do this, people notice, or I can't find funding, all these things where it's like here it's just like, oh, I've got an ambition, I'll go in action, I'll go and do it. It's like right at the forefront. And then I also just have a higher level of demand and standard. Like the other day I was walking back from the gym and it was just like someone again really young and they're obviously on like a work call and they're just talking about millions. I'm just like, where back home would you have someone just randomly down the street talking about millions? And I'm like, it's not that money motivates or anything, but that type of scale and growth, you're like, whoa, it is. It's like, and they were talking about like different countries, and I was just like generally walking and I overheard the conversation. I was like, the fact that that is normal is crazy.
Yeah, it opens up your mind, doesn't it? Because you start realizing that you're also playing maybe so small.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're in your little bubble and you're like, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. And then you hear about what other people are doing. You're like, oh my God. You're like, there are so many other things I could be doing as well. I'm just playing so small. Like I'm a little piece of a puzzle right now.
Yeah. And like we're obviously fitness coaches and stuff. And even that was one thing I like when you go to some of the gyms and you see like world-class physiques or world-class athletes and you're like, I've been doing this 10 years. I don't look like that.
Yeah.
Did you find any of that?
I think my past self probably would have found that, but I feel like I'm in a place now where I just am so desensitized to like physiques and body types, having body build as well. And I just, I don't really compare myself in that way anymore or go like, I go to the gym, I'm like, whoa, everyone's so like in world class shape. But I did recognize like in Benoos especially, like everyone's massive and everyone's just incredible. But no, it wasn't something that hit me. I think it was more the kind of career aspects that really got me being like, wow, people are achieving so much at the same age as me or even younger. Like there are so many people who are way younger doing so much more. And that I find so inspiring because I'm like, wow, I can do more as well.
Yeah, I like on the training aspect, I remember I was in WellFit and there was a girl and she was doing like handstands like literally for like half an hour while I was doing like a run workout and like she was doing that and I was just like, you would not get this back home in Belfast.
Yeah.
That was one thing, but the career aspect too, I was like, definitely just like a league alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another thing is like people here realize like you don't have to hold yourself to any sort of identity. I think it's very easy for us to almost create this identity for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And we almost create this like box where it's like, well, this is who I am. So I have to continue being this person. You know, like when you look at maybe like back at home, I know that, you know, most people, they study a degree and then that degree leads them to a particular job. And it's almost like there's no possible way to even think that they could do anything else besides what they've studied. Whereas I feel like here, it's like, again, people have like a job and they have a side hustle. Then they're like, oh, but I want to do this. And it's like, well, what's stopping you? I don't need a certain degree. I don't need anyone else to validate me. I'm just going to do it. And I think that's so powerful as well, right?
Yeah, it is indeed. And it sounds like you've been through a whole big shift since being in Dubai. Would you say that's been the case? Like, yeah, what was Shangang when she came here and who is she now?
I definitely think having come to Dubai, I've learned how to actually like live my life a little bit more. Like because there is so much to do here and so many people to meet, I found that I've actually given myself some time back to be like, you know what, I'm going to actually explore these things, actually create more connections. And we had a discussion about this. Like it made me realize there was so much more to life than just being in my room working. And of course it doesn't mean I don't work as hard, but it's just made me realize like, okay, like I actually want to get myself out and do things that are going to create experiences and memories for myself. And actually live like someone who's in her 20s.
Yeah.
How about you? Yeah.
For me, definitely. Like I think post-lockdown, I came here straight after lockdown and I was just blown away by like how many things there were to do. So I would say I definitely work hard. Like I work as much. I want to pour every single bit of me into what I'm doing at this stage of life.
Yeah.
But being here, there's so many different options. And I felt like before the only option was to go and enjoy yourself was like alcohol. And I don't I actually probably drink more here than what I did back home. Like, well, not this year. This year I haven't drank I've drank once this whole year, but last year and the years before. But I think it was different because of the people, because of the environment, and there was more to offer. And I find that like, because there was more fun things that really engaged me, and it wasn't just like your normal sort of thing, going in, drinking for the sake of drinking on a Saturday night. There was like experiences. It really enforced me to, yes, work hard, but then also as well enjoy myself more. So like loads of people, when I go back home, they're like, well, you're completely different. Like you enjoy yourself more. There's more color. There's more, you seem more relaxed. So yeah, it's definitely helped on that side, having a lot more of a social scene.
More richer life.
Yeah. And like even like the things we were talking about, like going volleyball and stuff, and you're like in between your playing volleyball and doing something like that, you're like having conversations about business or about coaching or about what you're up to or your marathon. Like, like we were saying about people's standards, like if you've done a marathon, you're in the top 1% of the world.
Really?
Yeah, for
I didn't even
marathons. I
know
don't know
that.
where, like,
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you're a top 1%er.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, do you know what I mean? So many people say that, but that's like normal. And like all our friend group
It's
is
so
like,
normalized here,
done
yeah.
that. Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
also why I didn't realize it was such a big like deal. Like, oh, I just ran a marathon because I'm like, everyone around me is doing like Ironmans.
Yeah,
what even? What's a
that's what I
marathon?
mean. Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's funny because obviously you mentioned like drinking and all of that, and then going out and then still, you know, owning your own business and still staying in shape. So clearly like you're able to have it all. But I think when people are very career driven, you know, you always hear the excuse of, oh, I'm going to work on my fitness goals later after, you know, maybe in 2 years time. Or you have people who are just super into the gym, but then they don't really know how to navigate, say, you know, their career or a social life. How do you have it all?
One of the biggest things I used to, when I was like, my biggest goal with training right now, it isn't solely on how I look. It is one factor, but it isn't like one piece of the pie, but it's not all the pie, where it used to be absolutely everything. And I used to get really annoyed in regards to like, why can't I stay consistent or follow through or progress as fast as what I'd like to? And I realized that I was working a ridiculous amount. Like my coaching business just flew off and I was helping a lot of people. And I didn't have the awareness back then to realize a lot of it was down to my energy. When I have poor energy, that it then resulted in me making poor decisions that inhibited the ability to make progress. So the big thing that allows for me to progress personally, physically, professionally is understanding my energy. So yes, I said earlier on about I want to pour as much as I can into my work, but those breaks are massive for me. And I've spent the last 5 years really doubling down on energy management and understanding that. And even like some things, even like emotional energy, physical energy, mental energy, like even just really getting the grips in regards to, right, what is my energy and when do I need to sort of step away from the laptop? When do I need to step away from work? And actually the most productive thing for me is going having fun. And by having fun or by letting myself relax, that given me so much more of a higher vibration, and that carrying over into my coaching and into my work, and that then progressing. So I would definitely say the biggest thing has been energy and just understanding my energy. That's allowed me to have it all within the physique, training, career and social life. What about you? Like when I say that, what comes up for you?
For me, it was routine. You know, growing up, I think I really struggled with like just time management. And then obviously when you can't manage your time manages you, right? Like everything's just all over the place. And then that becomes very overwhelming. You feel like you're doing a lot of things at once, but when you actually analyze your time, you're not doing anything productive. So I actually learned this through bodybuilding, like because I had such a strict routine to follow in my like diet and training, I applied that to obviously then my career and then my social life, and just made sure that I really just kind of broke everything down and just planned everything to the T. And that allowed me to then actually be able to kind of visualize time and be able to then manage it better. And then of course, energy management. So knowing when am I most productive? When is it better to do work? When is it better to actually go work out and have that downtime? And being able to then kind of just block those out and compartmentalize my life. I think that's what it was. Or else you just have all these different things going on, and it is hard. It can be really overwhelming.
What, like, when did it start to click? When did the routines and stuff start to click for you?
Honestly, I think it was bodybuilding. Like, that's why I would never regret going through that, because it really taught me, like, if I can manage my time, if I can manage my own expectations, and if I can just show up and get the work done, I'm going to get the outcome that I want. I think, you know, bodybuilding teaches you what you put in, you get out. So if you plan things out properly, then you're going to get out what you know, plan for. So same with, like, you know, if you're trying to achieve success in your body and your performance and your career, does your plan, like, does your daily schedule reflect that? Like, if you look at your Google Calendar, is it going to show you what you really are prioritizing right now and what you're working towards? If it's not, then that's probably why you're finding yourself doing all these different things and putting so much energy into these areas, but still not getting the outcome you want because you actually haven't probably planned for it at all.
And talk about that stage when I first met you and you were like in the corporate career and you were like because how did you manage training and everything then, and also building your coaching business? Because I remember you were an absolute machine.
You know what? I think when you have that pressure behind you as well, you're going to execute. I really do believe like when you have that pressure there, you're going to execute. But at the same time, I think I wanted it all so badly. Like I really set my mind to it. And I'm someone that if I set my mind to something, I'm going to make sure it happens. So yeah, back then I was getting up at like 5 a.m., starting work there, like the coaching stuff, and then heading to the gym to get my faster cardio done, getting my workout done, coming back right before my 9 a.m. call in corporate, and then between like corporate calls, working on coaching as well, filming content. And then afterwards around like 8, 9 p.m. I'd switch off from corporate and then get back into coaching. And like, you know, in hindsight, that's definitely not sustainable. But I think I realized that I couldn't have balance for a few years if I really, really wanted to push this and get to where I want to be now. So yeah, I think it was just that pressure behind me being like, I really want to make a change in my life right now. These are these goals that I really, really want to strive for. So I'm going to do everything I can to get there. And I'm not going to take like no for an answer. I'm not going to take any sort of excuse I give myself as an answer.
So there's periods where you lock in and then periods where you sort of
push and pull periods. Yeah. And that was definitely like a push for a good year or two, which again, in hindsight, I think not sustainable in the long term. But I do feel like a lot of people do need to give themselves that year or two to just grind it out, because that 1 year or 2 years of grinding is going to push you forwards 5 years ahead, right?
Go into monk mode.
Literally. Yeah. But for a year or two.
yeah, not forever. No,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I do think that. I think that there is a period where you need to build your life. And it doesn't matter what is going on. You just need to decide, what is it I want? Why is it I want that? And you need to, as bad as it sounds, there is elements where you need to make sacrifices, but it's like, it's not forever. It's just going for a short period of time. Yeah,
and I think the word sacrifice has a very negative connotation to it. Like, look, in life, if you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another thing, right? So there's always going to be a sacrifice made. So it's like looking at, well, what do you see as worthy of sacrificing right now for the greater good? And that could be like, yeah, if you want to get ahead in your career and you want to build a life where you have this freedom and you get to live life on your own terms, well, then you're going to have to sacrifice some of that freedom right now, maybe in your social life or in, you know, the instant gratification that you're getting from all these other elements in life. And that's totally okay as well.
Yeah. The thing that I think about when it comes to sacrifices is like, when I know that there's something that's challenging, on the other side of it is a better Ben, is a better person. And like, I think that when people sometimes get towards a boundary, they fear it. I want to see what boundaries I've got. I want to I want to see how much I can grow. And like, I sit down at the end of every year and I have a coffee with myself and I look over, like, right, every single year I write a statement for the following year and I look over, right, what happened? How did it go? And anything that's been hard, I'm proud of. Like, I'm proud of that. And like, in the moments where, for me, when I'm going through those sacrifices, it's just like, this is the reason why most people give up. Yeah. Like, the extra mile is never crowded. And that's the thing that I think about and that really drives me. There's other things like drive me, like people outside of that, like, and things that I want to do outside of that. But like, internally, they're the type of things for me that I think about. Do you, like, is there anything... Is yours similar? Is yours different? Yeah. Yeah,
I think definitely leaning into discomfort, like learning to actually love that discomfort. Yeah. Also why I was like, I'm going to do a marathon. Because again, I think once you've proven to yourself once that if you do something hard, it's going to give you so much more confidence back. It's going to really show you what you're capable of. It becomes really addicting, like the game of how much discomfort can I put myself through, right? But again, I think by doing those hard things, it enables you to then recognize that you can achieve whatever you want in life. Like, there's no goal that's too ambitious or too out of reach. It's whether you're okay with, you know, setting yourself up for that discomfort and whatever you have to go through to achieve it. If you're willing to withstand anything, like any sort of pain that comes to you, then you can probably achieve anything you want in life.
Yeah. And like, I've seen you achieve a lot the last few years. If you had to do it in half the amount of time, how would you do it?
Ooh, half the amount of time.
That's the question I ask on my Level Up Academy podcast to everyone. If you had to do it in half the amount of time, how would you do it?
Yeah. Worked with a mentor earlier.
Okay,
I'm-
everyone says that. Let's get the Chang Yang. How would Chang Yang?
How would I work on my mental health earlier? Realize that my mental well-being and my emotional well-being is a pillar that's gonna either push me forwards faster or stop me, right? Because I think your mental well-being is so closely then tied to your productivity and your ability to do the do. If mentally you're not in a good place, if you're emotionally volatile, then there's absolutely no way that you can do your work at its best output, right? You're distracted, you're not able to think clearly, your whole thinking's distorted. And, you know, I realized that having gone through a lot of just like ups and downs with business and, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're going to go through that. And I realized that it wasn't all these different things that I was pinpointing, but rather the problem was me because I was a common denominator, you know, and when a challenge arises and I haven't done the personal work mentally and emotionally, I end up stopping myself from actually overcoming it at a rate that I'd like to, right? You end up kind of sitting there for a little bit longer because you don't know how to handle it yourself. You don't know how to handle yourself. So definitely investing more into my own personal development and my emotional and mental well-being.
What about as an athlete?
As an athlete, to get myself to where though, like
Where you are today? Like the shape and the performance that you have now?
Ooh, I don't think I wouldn't have wanted the journey to go any faster. Like,
Yeah.
I really, like, I appreciate having struggled for a few years through like high school, uni, because that taught me so much. And it's the only reason why I coach and do what I do today, right? So I'm glad I spent all those years struggling with my body because now I really relate to women who have spent years struggling with their body and dieting, right? I don't regret spending 2.5 years bodybuilding and neglecting my health, like, because in hindsight, now I have the awareness of why it's so important to educate women, especially around their menstrual cycles and, you know, exercise and dieting. So I don't regret any of that, and I wouldn't want to have gone any faster. Like, I appreciate the time there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. How about you? What would you say?
I'll start with the body aspect. I think I was a bit ignorant with the body aspect. I think I didn't. I was under the impression a lot of it was like you either don't have a discipline or do have a discipline. So I didn't understand my own behaviors. I didn't understand my relationship with food. So I would probably not, if I did it half the amount of time, I would definitely just not put the man up button on. And I would definitely actually sit down and think, well, why is that? What is it's happening there? And I would dive into it a little bit deeper. In regards to physical, I'd explore. I'd let myself explore what's possible. Like I've done ultra marathons, I've done bodybuilding, I've done photo shoots. I always talk myself out of things. So in that sense, I've probably been really eager pushing coaching and pushing that my mental performance to extremes, but I'd say physically, I haven't went with that type of mindset towards it as much as what I've liked. So I would like the human body is. I don't know if I can swear now. I can do.
You're free to swear.
I can do a lot. So I would put myself under more pressure to do not pressure, timelines to do things. The last few years, I've definitely like explored and I've definitely pushed the boundaries with that. From a performance standpoint. So it's like I would love to have, if I had to do it in half the time, I'd set more performance targets. So I would, and more performance things to get me out of my comfort zone and be around it. Well, I suppose I said earlier on mentors. I would do my best to be in environments that inspire me more.
With people who inspire you.
Yeah,
Well,
to really push me from a body perspective. From personal perspective and career. What would I do and if I had to do it in half the amount of time? That's a great question. I'm used to asking everyone else it, but no one's ever asked me it, especially on the spot. Like you said, the emotional awareness and give myself more space and allow myself to relax. Give myself space to think and give myself the ability to think like through problems rather than be dependent on others or do things the way other people say that I should and let myself sort of think through problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably would have got here a lot faster and it would have been better.
Interesting, yeah. You mentioned obviously your relationship with food.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about that. What was it like before?
Yeah, well, like everyone knows that if you, um, everyone's pretty aware of, like, say for example, if you have a messed up childhood, that that's gonna come out in some way, shape, or form in your adult life.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same with your food. So it is like that sort of aspect. You'll view food in those ways. So for me, like, I grew up, I was known eating 24 Jaffa cakes. My mum was over here. My mum was over here a few weeks ago, and she told my partner a story about how when I was 5 years old, I was at pizza and I had 13 plates and an all-you-can-eat buffet. So like, you know what I mean? Like, I was a skinny guy. I was skinny fat, and I masked my shitty diet with a ton of activity. So for me, food was the reward. Food was like, I would always condition myself. Like, there was four of us. So like, I remember really like clearly that Fridays and Saturdays, Friday night was like KFC night, and Saturdays was like, we would get this massive amount of like chocolates and sweets. And I was kind of just like, you get in fast, otherwise you're not getting it, or you're not going to get it because there's four of you. So I always conditioned myself to eat really fast. So it was just it wasn't a good relationship with food because I just relied on it so much, and there was so much sweets, and also as well, I didn't like my body. I started this whole routine because I was in the PE changing room and someone basically says, "Oh, look at your moves," and that was the final line. So it was, and that was like, you know what? I actually really don't like my body. And I joined the gym straight after it. So when you don't like your body, you view food as really in a really negative light, and you've been doing it for so long, and you haven't really had a great example of someone, and as well, you went and followed all the bodybuilding, and you get confused. That fucks with your relationship with food.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time. It took me to go on that aspect to fix the relationship with food. Where I actually really made the most progress on that was when I went slower with things and allowed myself to have like slip ups, or allowed myself to understand more about food rather than like understand the problem, not beat myself up. Yeah. What about, like, does any of that relate to you? Do you have any similar circumstances, or do you see, or
Yeah. So I think my struggle also happened in childhood. Basically, growing up, my mom would say that certain foods were obviously good or bad. I was never allowed like certain snacks. We would never buy like processed snacks because they were bad. So then obviously I grew up with this sort of like restrictive mindset, right? I was like, oh, I'm never allowed those foods. So every time I remember when I would go to a friend's place and their parents bought like a bag of crisps, I'd be like, oh my God, it'd be like Christmas Day. And as we'd be sharing it, I literally be like, just like eating so quickly because I'm like, oh my God, this is like the only time I can have like these chips or like chocolate, right? Because when I go home, it's just not available. So I think that obviously then kind of skewed my perception with food to understand that, okay, certain foods that my mom said is not allowed is bad for me. And then obviously then going into my teenage years, I wasn't too happy with my body. When you grow up in an Asian household, they are very blunt. Like your parents will just say things and without like registering that you have like emotions, and that, you know, like as a girl growing up, you're going to have body image issues as well. So just out of love, my mum would always be like, oh, like wear a dress, don't wear jeans because you have big quads, it runs in the family, blah, 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 all these different things. And that obviously played with my head to a point where I just like really lacked security in my body. I absolutely hated my body. Was also skinny fat. So I was always like, oh my gosh, like I'm fat, but I'm also skinny, but then I have big quads, like what is going on? And then as you said, like when you don't like your body and you're trying to change it, and then you hear all these different things being thrown around about food, you start associating, oh, it's this food that is causing me to look this way, and that's why I lack confidence, I hate my body because it's this food. And I think obviously knowledge is power. So when you don't have that knowledge, you just become anxious around everything, right? Because you just fear what you don't know. So it's like, you know, when people fear carbs, like there's no actual inherent reason. If you ask them, they don't know why. They're just like, oh, well, carbs are bad. It's because they don't have the knowledge to understand it's just calorie intake. And then obviously I think for a lot of people when they start their fitness journey, again, because they're trying to change their body and they associate their body with just foods in general, they create this like morale around food, where if they have a certain food's bad, if they have another food is good. I went through a phase where I was following all these like influencers, and it was like this like trend where you only had like raw foods where you don't cook it over a certain temperature. It was really weird. You had to like remove refined sugars. You could only bake with like almond flour and not normal flour. So then I ended up going to this like spiral where I was only eating like certain like raw foods that were not cooked over a certain degree. When I was baking with like coconut sugar, just avoiding all these different things. And I think it took me a while to actually realize like that was never going to get me my dream body. Like I was lacking so much knowledge and I was literally just believing everything I saw on the internet. Yeah.
What other mistakes did you make? We've all made a million.
Oh my God. Apple cider vinegar in the morning. I was taking daily shots. And my mom was like, what are you doing? And I was like, apple cider vinegar is going to help me lean my stomach out. And it's funny because like you almost like trick your brain into seeing results, because I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm losing body fat.
Placebo effect.
Literally, I was like, I'm losing body fat because I'm having apple cider vinegar and I feel so like detoxified. And now I know like, what the fuck? What other things? Intermittent fasting, I tried that. That led me to binging because, you know, when you're restricting half the day, of course, night comes and you're like, I haven't eaten all day, so I'm allowed to have like 4 pizzas or something. What else? Just a lot of like dumb things, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done so many stupid stuff. Supplements, all sorts. Yeah, just when you look back, I remember like I used to think because I was skinny, just like more was always better.
Yeah.
And I just ate so much. Like I used to make these like 1,500 calorie homemade protein bars.
No
so
way.
I would have 2 a day. And I was like, and that's on top of everything else. And like, I remember when I first started that, like, I used to like have like, I thought more protein was better, so like 8 or 10 eggs a day. And bear in mind, as an 18-year-old lad, like this is not good. Like
that's what a lot of people think, right? Like they're just like, oh, I need more protein.
Yeah.
But they don't really understand like how much is more protein. So they're just eating everything they see that's protein, without understanding that, well, if you have that much protein, you're probably going to be in a calorie surplus. So no wonder you're not dropping body fat, even though you're having enough protein.
It's mad.
Crazy.
So it is.
Yeah.
And like, talk a little bit about your journey now. Like, where are you at now, training wise?
Yeah, just performance based, really. I think it's been the most like refreshing sort of like last year. So obviously stopped bodybuilding early last year, just because I realized it was just restricting my lifestyle. I wasn't kind of the best version of myself at all. I was very much had like no character to me. I just cared about the gym and my macros, and it just wasn't me. So this past year, I've been on a weight gain journey, obviously just like healing my hormones, making sure that I got my menstrual cycle back. Obviously then started training for a marathon, which was something I never thought would be possible. Like I was always the girl who was like, I don't run, I suck at running, like that's for losers. I bodybuild and I only go to the gym.
I actually think I remember like we were just talking about training one day and you were like, oh, I'm in the hack squat. And I was like, you asked, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing some conditioning or whatever. And you were like, runnings for pussies or something.
I probably said that.
And I remember that. So I think
I definitely would have said that. Yeah, no, I was very much like, oh, I'm so much better than everyone else because I only like train at the gym and I lift heavy weights.
I don't know. I remember too, like, I think it was at the start of the whole ANX thing, that you used to always put the same. I just remember I could probably tell you your workout. It was the one arm cable and it was like you probably do every Tuesday, like she's doing that exercise.
Yes, yeah, because like, yeah, that's all I cared about. And then obviously I went for a run one day randomly after deciding not to bodybuild, and I was like, this feels really uncomfortable. I lasted like 5 minutes and I was like, this is so mentally challenging. Like I'm so bored. I went home, called my coach and was like, hey, like I kind of want to get into running because I just went for a 5-minute run and it was really hard. And I like the fact that it's hard because I want to see myself go through this. And he was like, all right, like, do you want to maybe try for a 5K, see how fast you can run a 5K? Or maybe like a half marathon. And I was like, you know what? I think the half marathon is going to take longer to achieve. And for me, I'm like, I want a goal that's going to take me a while to achieve because I want to work towards it and I want to have to go through hurdles. I want those days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go train. So I was like, let's do it, half marathon. And then naturally, what surprisingly was actually a decent runner, did a half marathon just on a weekend, was like, all right, let's do a full marathon. And yeah, now we're here, just hybrid training, which has been amazing.
One thing I really disagree with, right, is this whole thing like start small. Because when you start small, what you done is you started big.
Yeah.
But you started like, you obviously, right, 5 minutes to 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 15 minutes. But to change your ways and have that pattern interrupt, you need something worthwhile. The
Yeah.
way I view it is like a seesaw. If you've had all these habits or this way of training or this way of thinking or whatever, you need something big to like, right, we're going to change direction. But then you do it day on, day out. So no, I'm like that. And I think for me, because we're obviously like, we're similar. We've done bodybuilding backgrounds, physique-based backgrounds. Still, for me, I still want to look good, but it's not like the be-all, end-all. There's a performance aspect.
Yeah.
And this is what I have. This is what I went through and what I share with a lot of other people, because a lot of people come to us and they want the body first, but then later down the line we'll push them a little bit more towards performance. Is when you're getting a body, you are excited by the challenge, but there's only so long, a 12-week period, 16-week period, 20-week period, that you can be excited by that before it has a drop-off effect in regards to it impacts your social life, it impacts your work, it impacts these things. So it's like performance, you get that excitement and that challenge 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
So you do. Like, did you find that? Like, it's that's for me was like a body. You get you get excited and challenged by it when you're dieting, but the rest of the year it's like, oh, all right, you're training, you might be gaining phase, but it's like it's not really exciting you. So that's why I love performance.
Yeah. I think you need to combine the two, right?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
even when you're chasing that physique goal, a lot of it's still performance, right? Because if you're trying to build muscle, it's like, okay, well, how can we now understand that that's the overarching goal? But then inside it, to get to that goal, you do need to have these performance metrics. You need to be getting stronger. You need to track your numbers, right? So in that sense, I think I never felt like it became mundane because I was focusing on like, okay, well, what are the numbers, right? Like that's my
never
end
get
goal.
stale though.
No, I love the repetition in a weird way. Yeah, yeah. Because like, well, it's like you go into the gym and you want to hit new numbers, don't you? So I guess that is a performance-based goal. But in hindsight, I think now having done more hybrid training and the running and those kind of larger goals and ones that are a bit more ambitious, yeah, it obviously is a lot more exciting when you're doing something that's like really just performance-based.
Yeah.
But no, I never found it getting stale, but I can see why people get a bit bored out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I love it, like getting strong, but there was periods where I was like, my lat pull down from 3 sets of 10 at 55 kilos, I want to get to 79 kilos. Like, I was like, right,
Here we
okay.
go
Whereas
again.
if we're like doing a competition
Yeah.
or I've got 10 weeks of this or 10 weeks of that, I found it so much better. But like,
Yeah.
again, like I packed on size. I went from like 69 kilo, 95 kilo over like
Crazy.
4 or 5 years. So I was doing it for years.
Yeah, yeah. When did
Yeah.
you start training actually? Because you're not that old right now.
I'm 27.
Yeah.
I started training 18.
Okay, similar time as me,
So no, I started 18, I'd say properly. Yeah, so near 10 years now.
What would you tell Ben, knowing what you know now, when he just first started his fitness journey?
What would I tell him?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that young kid who was starting out.
yeah, I would tell him. Yeah, get on top of your eating. You're going to be eating every single day for the rest of your life. Understand it, master it. It's going to be crucial. You can't get on top of your eating for a diet plan. You get on top of your eating for understanding your behaviors, understanding your thoughts around food, and starting to build a diet. Like I talk to this in my program about building your own blueprint for life. Build your blueprint for eating. Build your blueprint for that. Training wise, like I said earlier on, like use your training and explore how much you can really push yourself and try loads of different aspects. And then like, even though I don't focus so much on like body, I still look at myself every single morning, 20 seconds in the mirror, and I have to be like satisfied with that. Like I really do believe if you're not okay with your body, it'll show in your career and in your life and in your relationships and in all other forms. So like, yeah, build something you're proud of. And don't hold back on that. You're not vain, you're not it's not a bad thing. It's you. It's important.
Yeah.
What would you say when did you start? And yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, probably same age, around 18, 19.
Yeah.
I would tell her that it's a complete lifestyle shift. It's not about just reaching that particular body that's going to make you happy. You're also not going to sustain it until you realize that it's about your whole mindset as well. So the mental well-being, the physical well-being, changing your habits and your lifestyle. Because I think a lot of people, they go into their fitness journey being like, all right, like just 12 weeks, just knuckle down. And it's like, that's why it never works, because you haven't actually committed to a lifestyle change. All those habits that you have right now, the way that you're thinking, your beliefs about yourself, all that needs to change. So if I was to go back to my 18-year-old self, I'd be like, you know what? It's a holistic change that we're looking at right now, not just you getting to the gym or you finding the perfect diet. There is nothing like that. It's the lifestyle that you need.
And you mentioned earlier on about it didn't allow for you in your bodybuilding to have the best version of yourself. What is the best version of yourself?
Yeah. I'm a true believer that like the best version of me is someone who obviously takes care of herself, but is also able to pour energy into others and to create memories with others, experiences, connections. And when I was bodybuilding, I was living such a restricted lifestyle that it was just me pouring into myself in a way that only kind of allow me to per se get the body that I wanted. But when you look at my experiences in life, my connections with people, none of that existed, right? Outside of the gym. My world was literally the gym. All I talked about was macros, my training, my cutting and my building. What the hell?
I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I used to like when I was in that phases, I used to like my Saturday night was defined by like how much calories I had. It's like right, let me check how much calories I have. Oh, right, I can do that plan. Whereas like I want to do that plan, I'll fit my nutrition into it. And it's like it was the first lens that you look for everything rather than your own enjoyment.
Literally, it's like, am I allowed to do this? Well, just let me look at my nutrition. Or like my off plan, me like, oh, let me see my coach will allow me. And then I'll tell my friend, oh, I can make it. If I couldn't, I'd be like, sorry, I'm busy. And I wouldn't be busy. I'd just be at home, like eating out of my Tupperware. It's crazy, right? But then you normalize that when you're in it, because you don't see, like you don't see yourself in it when you're in it, because it's just all you know until you take a step out, or maybe you're reminded by like other people in your life of the past version of you, right? Who you were before bodybuilding. Then you're like, oh crap, like I've really changed. I didn't realize.
I don't know if like girls do this as much, but when I was like competing, I remember like middle of the day, you're at the toilet and you take an ab check, and your day basically looked at like how if your abs were leaner today than yesterday. You're like, that dictated like it's like that's a good thing, it's a bad thing. It could piss you off in like half an hour, and you're like, oh
Yeah, no,
So
I haven't done it actually.
No, that was just especially in those last stages, it was like we're on track, we're moving forward.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crack up. No.
Yeah. So for me, I can relate to that, and the reason why I asked it is because it's like I felt that too. I felt like it's not allowing me to be the man that I wanted to be and have the experiences that I want, and it kind of like it was the bodybuilding first rather than rather than the actual experience, and I had to fit my experiences into the bodybuilding, which I just didn't like. Yeah.
And you know what's sad is that there are so many people who just genuinely want to build confidence and build a better body, but they're literally living like a bodybuilder. Like they're almost restricting themselves in a way that you would have to at a bodybuilding level, but obviously not being bodybuilders. Like there are so many females who join our coaching. They're like, oh, this is what I have to do. Like this is my like schedule. This is what I eat. I'm only allowed to eat these certain things. This is my training. And they're completely overdoing it to a point where I'm like, your lifestyle literally sounds like someone who's competing or has to restrict themselves. And it's just like, it's so beautiful when you're on the other side of fitness where you're like, okay, I actually know how to live my best life, have a girls' night out, have some food out, like have great relationships and still be that gym girl and still love my body and feel good.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like for me, like I took steroids and I was like, I thought that would help me. I thought that would be the thing. And I thought that would give me so much. But then I realized like when I took it like that sort of serious with the bodybuilding, I remember doing like blood glucose and doing HRVs readings every single day, but all these things, and you're just like, it doesn't, you just don't need to put yourself through all that resistance and all that pain.
Yeah. It's so easy to get sucked into it though, because like when you mentioned that, you know, I remember after my second show, my coach was also like talking about obviously like steroids and all of that, and I literally like considered it. I was so close to being like, yeah, that's what I want to take me to the next level. But I absolutely had no reason why. Like in hindsight, I'm like, there's no reason why I would have wanted to take it. But when you're in that like tunnel, it's so hard to see reality and see what you actually truly value. Like your values are all over the place. Yeah.
I kind of like, when I talk to people about it, I was like, it's kind of like when you're in it, you're in a casino. And instead of in that casino with like £100, you've all of a sudden got £1 million. You're gonna have way more fun in there, and you can't realize the drawbacks of that. And it's just there's more dangers to that, and there's more side effects and stuff. But yeah, like that. If I had to go back to the 18-year-old self, Ben, I'd definitely say you don't need gear for your goals.
Yeah.
Like unless you want to do a compete like at the highest level, you just don't need gear.
Yeah. Did you find that you had body dysmorphia coming out of that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, I went for a whole identity shift, and I was getting smaller. I used to be way bigger, and I found that during that whole sort of downsizing and stuff that I wasn't enough. That was my view then, and I took it because I didn't feel enough. And when I realized like I'm 10 times more confident than what I am now with like 2 stone lighter, so it was like that muscle. It wasn't really the thing that was giving me what I wanted. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, I felt the exact same way, but more so imposter syndrome. Because obviously after competing, that was also when I'm still coaching, right? And going through like a weight gain journey and almost being less kind of like strict with my food and not being the girl who tracks every single gram and like, you know, lives for workouts. I went through a phase where I was like, oh my gosh, like how can I call myself a fitness coach if I'm not like being that super disciplined fit girl? Because for me, for a very long time, it was like, okay, fitness is if I'm shredded all year round, I'm a competitor, I'm super disciplined. Every morning I'm at the Stairmaster doing my fast cardio. To then gain weight and then to kind of be more relaxed my approach, I was actually questioning like, am I still like inspiring for others?
I can totally relate to that. And I think it is, there is obviously massive in the female, but for guys, every single men's health cover or every single like male YouTuber, every single like physique athlete, it's all gear. Like it is 99% for guys. It will be very hard to find someone that's not. It's like I actually like CrossFit because I feel like, well, I don't know. There's obviously all the ins and outs of that. Like, are they taken or are they not? But like for males, it's completely like skewed off in regards to like what's naturally possible, and it's so normal for all these sort of figures to be at such a high level of influence. And I thought that I needed to do that to get to that level of influence to impact people, whereas reality is I was changing lives all the time throughout and changing more lives at way less. So like, yeah, I can totally relate to that sort of imposter syndrome.
All right, so wrapping up this episode, if you could give the listeners one piece of advice, either that's in their fitness, their career, or just even just like their life quality in general, what would it be?
For each one or one just for all three?
Either or, yeah.
Yeah, I would say understand yourself more, understand your eating, unpack a little bit more of like why you're eating the way you are or what you could do to eat better. Understand your energy, when your high performance hours are physically and mentally. Understand when you need to relax, and as well like understand like what is it you really want and just go fucking all in for it. Yeah. What would you say?
I would say to believe in yourself, to really trust yourself, know that if you can back yourself regardless of how hard things get, you are going to succeed. I think a lot of people just do not back themselves enough. I know the past version of me didn't. And you know, every hurdle that you meet, success is literally just over that hurdle. But a lot of people just stop right before the hurdle. Yeah. So really back yourself, give it your all, and just ask yourself like, what's the worst that could happen if I was to go all in and really, really just trust myself and the process.
Love that. Absolutely class. So
amazing.
I suppose where can people find you, like especially if they've got girlfriends and stuff? Yeah.
Yes, so my Instagram cz.fit. I'm also on YouTube, which is just my full name, Chen Yang Zhao. So that's ChenyangZhao, because it's a very hard name to spell. How about you? Where can they find you?
Ben Heron with one R. So Ben and then Heron, HERON /level up on Instagram.
Amazing, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, screenshot, tag us, because we'd love to see you guys tuning in.